So what was it like growing up black in Lincoln? Well, my experience was a lot of things. First thing I noticed from a very young age that many times I'd be the only black person or maybe the only person of color in the whole class. Say when we went on a field trip to the Nebraska History Museum as kids, and all these fourth or fifth graders are all looking around at this KKK uniform, and the story attached to it, instead of telling a story of terrorism and destruction, it had a story of some type of glorified redemption. And then on the way back from that same field trip, we're calling names and things in the bus, and the one white kid looks and says, well, I could call you worse. So those type of things compile. I remember going and trying to sell candy for some type of fundraiser and walking into the Sheridan neighborhood and walking up to the door, and the lady opens the door, white lady, and slams the door in my face and says, get out of here, nigger. So those things made you very aware of racial context at a very young age. Growing up, when I got in high school, there would be so many different instances of things that were different for black people in these situations. For example, when I switched high schools and went to Northeast, when I first got there, the counselors saw a black person and just put me in all the resource classes. So my father had to come down to school to put me into regular level classes and even advanced placement classes, and I scored well in all those classes. When I was at high school games, I was formally punished twice for not standing for the national anthem and kicked out of sporting events when I was in high school. And these things compile to where now, as a grown person, being, let's say, at my previous employment at a nonprofit agency, the executive director at that nonprofit agency told me that I wasn't ready or responsible enough to handle a budget when I asked for a director position. I had given 8 years of my life and time and dedication to building a program that was respected regionally, and to being a coordinator that handled budgets and even was saving tens of thousands of dollars from my performance with budget strategies. But then was told that I wasn't responsible enough. Not coincidentally, it was the sister-in-law of the administrator that threw me out of the sporting events in high school when I wouldn't stand for the national anthem. And so they say Lincoln's a very connected community, and it is. And Lincoln isn't definitely all bad, but growing up black in Lincoln, you definitely have, or I definitely experienced the differences and seeing two different types of worlds. So how do we change things for the future, for our children, our grandchildren? How do we change things for you, for my daughter, and my other children? I think that it starts with the truth and real education. Whenever you look at people like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson and we're saying that they're right, then consequently, who is wrong? And so if we continue to not only raise young black kids in Lincoln and in the whole country to glorify men who are human traffickers or rapists and robbers, that's only half the problem. Because what it takes away from the white folks who grow up with that same education is it takes away the humanity. It takes away being able to value people correctly. And so then you'll find it where you're conditioned, like the executive director who has the coexist magnet on her desk, but doesn't think that the black man is responsible enough to handle a budget. Being black in Lincoln also means that those same people that don't have to call you the N-word, but will do actions to treat you as if they wanted to, then will come out and ask for even more. So I was then asked to help the same executive director. She said, I want to make sure our nonprofit is up to standards and diversity and being a part of the solution. I saw you speak and I was so inspired.
can tell a real protester from a fake one.
So she wants to take more. And then after I gave her even more strategies and actions to actually help, she didn't want the actions. She wanted validation that she could say that she was reaching out. But this is even more the problem, is that the news will reach out to me and ask me, one person, to speak for all black people in Lincoln, like that's possible. But when's the last time that I heard the news stick a microphone in a white person's face and say, could you tell us what the white community thinks about any case? Now, even the premise that we do this story and this interview about being black in Lincoln, hopefully we can move on to a point where it's just being in Lincoln.